With the approach of Halloween in a couple of days, I wanted to prepare an extra spooky lore video for you guys. But as the grim darkness of the far future is filled to the brim with horrors beyond mortal comprehension, I felt the need to pull out one of the scariest places in all of known existence. Inside the throne world of the Imperium, the cradle of mankind, right underneath the Imperial Palace and the God Emperor, there is a vast complex of dark and gloomy prison cells. These do not hold normal prisoners or mere criminals. No, this is like the SCP Foundation within the 40K setting, including all of the crazy monsters and anomalies they secure. From demonic entities that could end the Imperium in a mere week, horrendous secrets that would break the trust in the God Emperor and his Space Marines, all the way to failed experiments that burned entire worlds in the name of a young god, to monsters so ancient that they predate the Old Ones and the original fleshy Necrontyr. The Dark Cells hold every nightmare even the Emperor could not handle. But why would the Emperor and his Shadowkeeper custodians keep all of these ancient and great evils right underneath the Imperial Palace? How have these Dark Cells never been breached in the last 10,000 years? Or have they been breached? Have some of these creatures already broken out and ruined vast swaths of the Imperium? Because believe me when I tell you, every single example we have seen so far has broken out multiple times and are the scariest things the writers of 40K have ever created. As this video has some setting altering level lore that very few people have actually read, I am putting all of the sources down in the bottom left hand corner throughout the video, as I really recommend reading these crazy bits of lore for yourself after you have watched this video. It is perfect spooky season material, and it will blow your mind that no one even knows about half of these novels. All that and a whole lot more in today's video. Also, if you like these kind of videos, consider becoming a channel member. I am starting to produce members only content at the beginning of November, and will be making a members only Discord for those who want to discuss the lore with me and the community, and want to help choose which video I will make next. Alright, enough talking. Let's get into the lore. In the grim darkness of the far future, man-made horrors, nightmares, xenos, and technology so dangerous it can kill entire civilizations have been spread far among the stars. Many of these are weapons or experiments gone wrong. Some are even naturally occurring apex predators from over 10 dimensions. But in any case, the War in Heaven, Dark Age of Technology, and subsequent Age of Strife have left the galaxy filled with horrors that should never go free again. For humanity, the Age of Strife shattered our confidence. Everywhere man walked, there were challenges and threats, and for the first time in the existence of our species, human ingenuity failed to best these dangers. Humanity had its very psyche damaged by 1,000 years of catastrophe, mistrust of curiosity and invention, of alien influence and psychic witchcraft. Our fear became instinct. Humanity became close-minded and violently traditionalistic, desperate to avoid repetition of the pain they had experienced. And so, when the Emperor began his Great Crusade, billions eagerly walked into the light of the Imperium. Of course, countless warlords and isolationists resisted, but could you blame them for mistrusting everything that lurked among the stars? The God Emperor of mankind, in his infinite wisdom, knew the myriad threats of the galaxy had to be exterminated, and where this was not an option, they had to be contained and secured instead. While the Adeptus Astartes are his bulwark against terror, the task of locking away the galaxy's most terrible secrets was given to his custodians. Deep beneath the Imperial Palace, upon Holy Terra itself, reside the Dark Cells, a jail where every prisoner or dark relic could spell the end of the entire Imperium. They are watched and looked after by the Shadowkeepers, a dark shield host that has stood guard for over 10,000 years. These custodians are not like the others. They are not golden. They are no longer perfect. They are on edge, watchful of the dark, and after they leave their service, they rarely speak of what they witnessed. Now that the 13th Black Crusade has shattered Cadia and has torn the galaxy in half, the Shadowkeepers have tasted the bitter pill of failure. An unknown number of cells have been found empty, the occupants and relics within having disappeared during this Noctis Eterna. In a galaxy where chaos besets the Imperium on all sides, there now lurk even greater threats right underneath humanity's cradle. So when the Custodes partially lifted the edicts of restraint and vowed to increase their patrols past the Sol system, the Shadowkeepers decided to join them. These grim warriors carry with them the burden of having to complete their hunts or else face the doom of the entire Imperium. And in their hunts, the Shadowkeepers are utterly ruthless. Anyone who stands in their way for even just a moment is slaughtered. Perhaps one might even argue that, currently, the only true reason the Imperium still stands is not because of its endless armies, but because of the watchful eye of the Shadowkeepers. But with that dramatic intro out of the way, what exactly do we know about the Dark Cells? What do they look like? How do they work? What do the Shadowkeepers actually do in them? Let's take a look at the Dark Cells themselves before we get into the monsters that are held within. The exact origins of the Dark Cells are unknown, but we know for certain that they were created by the Emperor and completed after Terra was unified. But what is it like to be here? What is it like to be within the Dark Cell complex? Well, the Dark Cells are something by themselves, almost as unknowable as the prisoners they keep, to the point that only a custodian could ever hope to understand them. But luckily for us, as seen in Cypher Lord of the Fallen, we get to see Shadowkeeper Warden Hecaron's thoughts on them. Hecaron walks past the outer doors to cells and oubliettes. Some only he can see. Others bulge with locks and buzz with field generators. Behind these doors are things that the custodians cannot or will not destroy. There is an old man whose words can kill billions. There is a coiling darkness that has no shape until it is seen. There is a small, black cube without hinge or lid, and on. Locked and sealed from memory inside, there are things from the depths of time and darkest reaches of the human soul. Some have names in the language of old myths: the Eater of Gods, the Serpent of Ending, the Unmaker of Thrones. Some have never been named and never shall be. There are living things and machines and objects that sit silent and unmoving, and all are awake. How do I know this? You don't become a mystery without learning a few secrets. Summarize warp stability and interface, commands Hecaron.
Etheric sensors indicate widespread fluctuation in warp currents. Source external to complex. Null generators and etheric dampers compensating. Arcana wards and etheric seal integrity estimated at 98%.
End Vox system interface. Hecaron reaches a turn in the stone passage and pauses. He is counting, silently. Each fraction of a second, sliced off from the future with total precision. The Dark Cells are not a set of chambers, you see. They are a maze, forever remaking itself, filled with cutouts and kill systems. Sometimes, the Shadow Wardens let one of the lesser prisoners out to assess the systems. The result is never freedom. Hecaron and his kind hold the totality of the maze in their minds. They move through it by synchronizing with every twist, turn and alteration. If you could doubt that they were no longer human, this feat should put the matter beyond doubt. Hecaron reaches his count and steps forward. The passage behind reconfigures. Where there was air, there is now blank stone. His next step is upon the wall as embedded graph generators change which way is up. The passage ahead spins. Traps and hidden weapon clusters fire at random and rearm. Hecaron keeps walking, untouched and unimpeded, meshing into the lethal mechanisms. There are few Warden custodians in the cells tonight. Most have answered the call to stand in battle outside the walls. Hecaron has remained to stand watch over the incarcerated. He is alone, and even though he is a creature of near perfect control, perhaps a part of him can't help but wonder if something is about to happen. There have been incidents before, no prison is perfect, and tonight the inmates and prisoners are resistive. Hecaron can feel them stir, even through the energy fields, void logs, metal and stone. He can feel them. All of them are quiet, and Hecaron walks on, spear in hand, silence following at his side. The dark cells, as can be expected, also have a supremely dark aura around them. Sounds become whispers, and each hallway is filled with soft voices that echo into your ear. Shadows move on the walls by themselves. Even light becomes hard to use and reaches only a couple of feet as the custodies are forced to use sodium braziers. Other than the Shadowkeepers, only the trusted augurs of the Psychana Ordo Auxilia and select members of the Mechanicus are permitted inside, while the Grey Knights and various ordos of the Inquisition do help with capturing prisoners and items which only the dark cells can contain. They hand them over to the Shadowkeepers on the surface of Terra without a word, and are usually asked to leave immediately. The dark cells also have layers to them, stronger cells for greater threats, deeper cells for the most dangerous things. While Cypher was kept there with his fallen, their cells were indestructible, but nowhere near as advanced as some of the others. But if the dark cells have all of these defenses, protective wards, and even psychic dampeners installed, how did they fail when the Great Rift opened? Even during an event known as the Years of Madness, where all sorts of calamity befell Terra, from Genestealer cult uprisings to the death of the Captain General, how did the dark cells not break? Well, this is because of a rather long list of unfortunate accidents. The first is Abaddon breaking Cadia, which flooded Terra with demons and even extinguished the Astronomicon for a moment. The second is that while all of this was happening, a group of Dark Angels were trying to break into the Dark Cells, hunting Cypher. Yet for both of these things, the Dark Cells had contingencies. The Dark Angels destroyed a power generator for which there was a backup, yet a switch which was supposed to send a pulse of electricity to activate these backup generators somehow failed. Ultimately, this one switch ruined everything. Null fields and psychic dampeners all failed because of a lack of power. Worse yet, the man who made this switch died while making it, meaning that the person who replaced him must have skipped a step or not seen a flaw in it, a tiny mistake from millennia ago, biting the Shadowkeepers in the black armored buttplate. If you have seen my video about how custodies are made, then you know that there are entire clans of people dedicated to making their weapons and armor, and it is not out of this realm to think that the same can be said for the Dark Cells. So imagine that your grandpa passes away on the job. You've been blessed by finishing his job, but 3 centuries later, it all blows up and almost destroys the Imperium because you forgot to put a screw in. There was also one final mistake during which the Dark Cells were vulnerable, namely the fact that the Shadowkeepers were not present for the first time in 10 millennia. When demons invaded Terra, all of the wardens present left the cells to go fight on the surface. Only those who were required to fulfill the most important tasks stayed behind. Imagine the 300 companions staying inside the throne room, but then for the Dark Cells. As the world trembled and the cells broke one by one, the remaining Shadowkeepers killed many of the entities that had managed to escape. But as the brutalized nightmares of Old Night started to overpower the last remaining Guardians, the commander of the Shadowkeepers on the surface finally sounded his retreat. They had to go back. They had to save the Imperium. The surface had to defend itself. While on the subject of Shadowkeepers, they are the most important part of the Dark Cells, besides the cells themselves. They are the guardians of the Emperor's secrets. So let's take a quick look at these Dark Warriors. Many millennia ago, the Shadowkeepers numbered roughly 100 warriors, but since the opening of the Great Rift, the shield captain of this shield host has increased their numbers by many more. While not a requirement, many of the Shadowkeepers are also wardens. Each custodian warden is a veteran of at least 500 years of service. A warrior tempered and tested even by the standards of the custodies. The Shadowkeepers, of course, also take on the duty of capturing relics and individuals who need to be contained, something they have found themselves doing more than ever in recent years. To do this, they use what is called a stasis oubliette, which looks like an unassuming rune-inscribed piece of technology. Yet this item traps its victims in a stasis prison with which to bring them to the Dark Cells in a fully safe manner, essentially a custodian-made Pokeball. For weapons and armor, the Shadowkeepers stay true to the rest of the Adeptus Custodes, with a couple of minor exceptions. Several Shadowkeepers are entrusted with ancient and mysterious weapons, generally banned for use within the wider Imperium, only ever used as a last resort if the Dark Cells fail. The Shadowkeeper shield host wear armor whose auromite has been tinted a velvet black to blend with the darkness of the corridors and cells they guard. It is offset by crimson that represents the blood of their sacrifices in this dark duty's name. One of the relics used by the Shadowkeepers is the Veiled Blade, an ancient blade that burns with a bitterly cold and dark energy. The Veiled Blade is bestowed upon a custodian who has vowed to recover that which should remain hidden from humanity and return it to the Dark Cells. As stated earlier, the Shadowkeepers are not the type to sit around and do nothing. For example, they have destroyed a space hulk named the Ominous Gift, an act that left even the Imperial Navy surprised at their personal intervention. The Shadowkeepers also in recent history have joined Captain General Trajan Valoris on a secret mission to the ruined remains of Cadia. The Captain General was recently even joined by the current commander of the Shadowkeepers, Borsa Tusk. As Shield Captain, Tusk holds the unique title of Lock Warden, and he has taken the failing of the Dark Cells rather personally. Before this happened, Tusk only left Terra twice, but now he has vowed to remain Lock Warden until all which has escaped is returned. Of course, to become a Shadowkeeper is both an honor and a terrible curse. It not only requires superhuman resolve and the strongest will in the entire galaxy, but also a couple of incredibly dark secrets and the will to hunt them. Let's take a look at the deeds of legend of Arian Porphyrius, as seen in the Adeptus Custodes 9th edition Codex. I write now of Arian Vespasian Macrina Porphyrius. His full list of deeds runs as long as his guardian spear, the weapon named Precious. But it is of his time with us, the Shadowkeepers, that I now put Memoquill to Nanovellum in memory of. Gone he is, in his final deed, hope of his return nil. But what of the beginning, when his armor first underwent the Aurum Molech tinting, when he first adopted our sable? Each day for 1,000 days did he petition the Lockwarden to join us. He spoke of victories, of blood games, but he also spoke of patience, of resolve in the face of hardships, of the lessons learned from the witnessing of those beings and artifacts so evil their freedom cannot be tolerated. This did catch the Lockwarden's ear. The trials he passed. He stared into the 9 eyes of the Soul Delver for a day and a night and did not blink. He bested the 8 of the skull, while armed not with the spear, nor clad in a plate. For a day did he listen to the grantor of all 6 wishes before walking away unmoved. He breathed the fumes of the 7-fold trimiasma for 3 hours and did not seek relief. In dozens more tests was he successful. For 93 years did he serve well, a keeper of patience and vigilance whom many admired. Only once before these dark days did he leave the vaults, and return he did with the sorrow of Caracalla bound in warded chains. It resides with us still, never again shall it haunt the stars. In the maelstrom, in that place most foul was he lost, pursuing those secrets taken, when the light failed and the lion's gate drowned in blood. The chalice of Darkabalaster he sought, in the clutches of Huron's monsters it was. Never did he give up. Into the heart of the maledictum they plunged in escape, he with them. So yeah, the Shadowkeepers are some of the most insane prisoner guards you could possibly think of. They are the best of the best, but even these guys are changed and slowly broken down when near the prisoners of the Dark Cells. Alright, enough teasing, let's get into it. What is inside the Dark Cells? What does the Imperium keep down there? In the excerpts we have already covered, there are some teases, but a lot of the codexes give us lists like the following: the Old Man whose word can kill billions, the Black Cube without a hinge or a lid, and the Eater of Gods. There is also the Slithering Dreamer, which was killed on Tarnus 4 by one of the Shadowkeepers apparently. But we gotta have more than that. What other monsters, relics and entities do we know about? Well, a good example is when the Imperial Fist helped defend Terra during the Indomitus Crusade. Dark Cell relics were brought to the surface and used to repair the Phalanx. Technology and relics can be found in abundance in the Dark Cells, such as the Lament of Unreason, the Black Periapt of Ray 10 Eel, and the hideous Triblight Amulet, which are all kept under physically charged lock and key, behind meter-thick slabs of gene-sealed adamantine that are covered in runic wards. There are also many Xenos artifacts, remains of civilizations that went extinct millions of years ago. But back to entities. What kind of creatures are down there? Let's take a look at Cypher Lord of the Fallen, when Warden Hecaron fights one of the escaped prisoners. Hecaron is running, light screams around him, the passage into the Dark Cells complex trembles beneath his feet, gravity changes direction, the walls to his right become the floor, he switches step and balance without pause. The remains of a door lies across its path. It was a disc of cold iron and adamantium, half a yard thick and closed by bolts that ran 3 feet into the walls. Its wreckage clings to the passage walls, metal peeled and smeared into stone. He can see a shadow moving beyond a broken door, looming against the flame light. The Guardian Spear in his hand ignites with a shriek of lightning. Its blade is a smooth arc of metal, etched down to the atom, with the secret names spoken in its forging. The rounds loaded into the gun, worked into its shaft are silver. Gravity flicks up the ceiling as he leaps through the ruined door. The shadow turns to meet him. It does not have a name that a human mouth can speak. It does not have a shape, but it steals one from Hecaron's mind as he sees it. Empty darkness becomes a skin of molten iron, eyes of blue fire open in a face of bone, machine arms spread wide, claws rake sparks from the walls. Hackeron feels the fluctuating gravity flick out of being as the thing reaches for him. It is not fast. In a sense, it has not moved at all. It is just not where it was before. And where it is now is with its claws around Hackeron's neck. Hackeron's armor screams as it begins to buckle. He kicks off the wall as it becomes the floor, twisting free. Lightning-wreathed spear blade meets burning iron. Light and dark reverse, the nameless thing recoils, its form boiling into a red cloud. Hackeron lands, and the spear is already coming up, already lunging as the thing takes another shape. It is huge now, a roiling mass of splintered stone and black eyes. Hackeron's blade punches through it, but it is splitting, dividing like smoke caught in a gust of wind. It blasts towards Hackeron, wrapping around him, slicing, puncturing. The black and gold of his armor shrieks as razor edges score its surface. Hackeron feels the promise of annihilation and the hunger for freedom in the thing's touch. It is agony, but he makes no sound. For a moment he is falling back through the memories of his life, all the way back to before he could walk, when his only words to the world were an infant's cry, as he was taken from the flames of his home. He lets the moment and the sensation pass. Then he shrugs. Muscle and armor ripple in perfect harmony. The thing explodes from Hackeron in a cloud of glass shards. Hackeron's spear arcs through it. Matter is unmade. Lightning leaps through the thing as it fights to take a new shape. Hackeron cuts and pulls a device from his belt. It is small, an icosahedron in black matter. The thing knows what it is, knows what it means. It roars and flies at Hackeron one last time. He throws the black device. It unfolds through the mansion as it arcs to meet the creature. Light shears, distances expand so that the passage seems to extend to infinity. Then everything collapses inwards, and the creature folds and vanishes into nothing. The black icosahedron falls to the passage floor. Hackeron is already running again as he scoops it up and plunges down into the broken maze of the Dark Cells. While Hackeron was able to defeat the nameless entity he fought, he still needed to use a stasis prison to contain it, so he probably didn't actually kill it. This means that maybe, if the fight had continued for longer, Hackeron could have died. A rather horrifying thought, a being so powerful it can fight a Custodes one-on-one, and the Custodes needs to pull out a cheat to actually win. No wonder the Lock Warden has increased the number of Shadowkeepers. One of the other creatures we keep seeing mentioned in every Custodes codex is It That Craves. Now, I am going to theorize here, as we have literally nothing but a name. But It That Craves sounds a bit Slaanesh-like. She who thirsts, it that craves. But I am going to throw a curveball at you. What if It That Craves is not a demon, but instead an Eldar who helped create Slaanesh? After all, while Chaos Eldar are super rare, they do exist within the Eye of Terror. I mean, it's right here on the official novel cover for Atlas Infernal. There's also a being known only as one of the Fel. Who or what are the Fel? And why does Games Workshop refuse to give us normal creature names? My researcher and I both spent over a week grinding through the Liber Sinologies, every single edition rulebook, the Visions of Heresy books, and even tried to grind through some of the White Dwarfs. But we never found any reference to anything in 40k to what a Fel might be. So this is just my personal guess, and in a way an estimation from how other Xenos are usually described. But I believe that one of the Fel is a leftover Rangda. The Rangda are the single worst enemy the Imperium has ever faced, as it took 3 wars and multiple Space Marine legions to fight what is now known as the Rangdan Xenocides. If you want to learn more about the Rangda, then I suggest you watch my video about the Lost Primarchs. Link will be in the description below, but TLDR, there is in-lore proof that one of the Lost Legions was, well, lost during the Xenocides. But don't you worry, we have many more prisoners to discuss. Some of you might know that I am a massive Dark Angels fan, besides my deep love for the World Eaters, and so I have to talk about Cypher while he was in the Dark Cells. How did Cypher even get thrown into the Dark Cells? Isn't it like his whole thing that he is impossible to capture, and even more impossible to keep in a prison? Well, back when Guilliman was resurrected, Cypher helped him escape the Red Corsairs and wanted to join him on his journey to Terra. Yet when they arrived, Guilliman ordered Cypher to be arrested along with the Fallen who had joined him. So Cypher and his brothers found themselves in the Dark Cells, stripped of all their weapons and armor. But with the aforementioned Dark Angels hunting Cypher, which led to the Dark Cells being breached by blowing up a power generator, Cypher and the Fallen managed to escape. Besides Cypher, there is also the infamous Subject 11. There is a very straightforward answer to this one. Namely that this is the 11th Primarch. But is it really? All we have is a name. We don't know where they came from, when they were captured, or if they could even escape. The only thing we know is that this individual is powerful enough to threaten the entire Imperium. And well, can that truly be a single Primarch? For all of the might of a Primarch, they are formidable warriors and great generals, but they can be beaten, even outsmarted by their lessers in exceptional cases. Looking at you, Pollux. So I would argue Subject 11 is not a Primarch, or at least not a normal Primarch. After all, if the Primarchs were capable of destroying the Imperium by themselves, the Custodes would have made an active effort to capture or kill them when the Horus Heresy started. But what if it is, let's say, the 11th version of a test? Like how there was a test Primarch before the 20 Primarch Sons of the Emperor were made with the fire he stole from the Chaos Gods, as we got to see in Era of Ruin. I'm talking of course about the Angel of Destruction. For those who don't know, this being is the single most powerful creation the Emperor has ever made. While not originally called a Primarch, he was easily more powerful than all 20 other Primarchs combined, something which the Emperor regretted. See, the Angel of Destruction is called that for a good reason. The Angel was a weapon to fight and utterly destroy Chaos. Yet it also concluded that to truly destroy Chaos once and for all, every single human had to be killed. So in a panic, the Emperor sealed him away and started over. But what is also important to know is that while the Emperor sent the Angel to Terra to be destroyed, after he had trapped it, the coffin somehow got lost. And of course, there is an entire story about the Inquisition finding it, using it, regretting it, and immediately locking it up again. So perhaps the Angel could be Subject 11. Or perhaps Subject 11 is another failed attempt by the Emperor at creating another super weapon. One of the scariest facts about the Dark Cells is that some cells remain corrupted with the dark essence of what was once in them. The issue is, if you find this dark essence, it means someone escaped. And as seen in Auric Gods, it can even make Shadowkeeper custodians collapse on the spot. Varrogalan strode on, ignoring the wailing, the whispered promises and sanity-eroding imprecations. The light maintained a constant struggle against the dark down here, the sodium braziers flickering weakly and barely holding back the encroaching shadow. Mechanicus adepts, the great Martian minds, had tried to engineer lumens capable of cutting through the darkness, but no power augment or fuel source could touch it. Even arcane methods of illumination had been found wanting. Though they did fare better than any technological solution, the darkness reigned, its dominion almost absolute. Varrogalan kept his eyes open, disavowing the half-glimpsed phantasms of the edge of sight. His nerves felt exposed, raw, as if the slightest touch would send them into spasm. Here, even the custodians gave pause. Marshalling his resolve, Varro Gallant came up to the chamber he sought. Much like the others, the chamber had a marking on the wall next to it, a simple numeric code that belied the nature of what it harbored. Its door stood open, a reminder of his failure. The gloom inside beckoned, but he refused it. Even in absence, the thing that had once been held here had a presence. Like an unquiet spirit, it almost seemed to haunt the room, which was scarcely 10 feet across and the same deep. The ceiling was high enough to admit the custodian, should he choose to enter. He did not. A void held him back, a space both unoccupied and occupied at the same time. Poised at the threshold, Varro Gallant lowered vigilance and pointed the guardian spear's side-like blade towards the dingy cell, as if he could impale the memory of what it had contained. He closed his eyes and was assailed by visions. A great leviathan, slowly uncoiling from a heady broom, its malice suffocating. A skeletal effigy, its horns reaching into the night, and the screams of sacrifices heavy on blood-misted air. A cage of lightning, a cruciform figure silhouetting it, the fork staring slits in reality. When he opened his eyes again, he had fallen to one knee. His heart pounded, breath saw through his mouth. Varro Gallant gripped a haft of vigilance and used it to push himself back up. It anchored him for long enough that he threw off the insidious darkness. Then he turned, his back to the opening, and slammed the spear's ferrule against the floor. It made no sound beyond a deadened thud. The shame weighed heavily, but he bore the burden, as they all did. The open door behind him served as a reminder of their collective failing. It was not the only one. Other Shadowkeepers stood before similar doorways. The black iron halls ran deep, bored into Terra's bedrock, and sealed during the time of unity. There they remained, the vigil of the Shadowkeepers undisturbed, until the day the Neverborn returned to the throne world. But I'm not done just yet. Did you know that before the Dark Cells, Terra already had multiple subterranean prisons that could hold the likes of the Primarchs? One of them was even intended for the corrupted Horus. Let's get into the Khangba Marwu, the secret prison of Terra. The Dark Cells were indeed not the only prison the Emperor had built upon Terra, but it is his strongest to this day. On each side of the planet, there are the polar prisons, constructed underneath the deepest part of Terra's dried out oceans. The God Emperor was no stranger to needing cells for his most dangerous of enemies. But before the Dark Cells were conceived and the polar prisons were not secure enough, he had designed a special third prison complex called the Khangba Marwu. The Marwu is also known as the Vault, and much like the Dark Cells later on, they were guarded by the custodians. This prison was initially built in the Himalaya mountains, but no one truly knows the origins of them, only that it has been there forever, and that even before the Unification Wars, it had cells for psychers and techno-monsters. If it were up to the Emperor, all of the greatest techno-barbarian warlords who defied him would have rotted away in the vault, such as Cardinal Tang or the Lost Ethnarch, who was the very last nation resisting the Emperor with their Tempest galleries. Perhaps the greatest criminal who would have been put inside the vault was Narton Doom, who ruled over the Pan-Pacific Empire, but Valdor argued with the Emperor that it was better for Doom to be executed rather than to be contained. Of course, the vault was not made redundant after the Dark Cells were created. For example, those from the traitor legions who were part of the Crusader host on Terra were imprisoned here, and a cell was supposedly prepared for Horus. But like Doom, he would never set foot inside the vault. While one man has claimed to escape the vault, this man is also suspected of being a blatant liar. Of course, several Space Marines from the Crusader host did manage to escape the vault, making it all the more understandable why the Custodes chose to keep Cypher in the Dark Cells instead of the Khangba Marwu. So, in conclusion, the Dark Cells have worked so well that we don't actually have a lot of lore about them. The fact that they were compromised in part by the Dark Angels hunting Cypher is also just hilarious. Perhaps now is better than ever to mention that most of the Custodes lore we have is rather new compared to the lore we have of the Primarchs, Space Marines and Mosinnos factions. Most of it, if not all, came from the 7th edition onwards. In all honesty, I feel like the Dark Cells have a really solid lore foundation. It is a tool for Games Workshop to use and abuse to write really engaging and terrifying stories. I could see them use these cells more often, to explain the randomly escaped monster, or to give someone or something a proper way to be taken out of the lore once they are captured. Perhaps it is intentional that many of the things in the Dark Cells are only known by a name and not much else. I think there is a great amount of potential for theories and speculation, especially with It That Craves, One of the Fell, and Subject 11. And GW here has a lot of space to just keep writing forever, and as someone who used to enjoy the lore of SCP for a good couple of years, this stuff hits just right. But what do you think of all of this? What do you think is down in the Dark Cells? Are there any monsters or entities that I missed that should definitely have been in this video? What do you think Subject 11 is? Do you think he's one of the Lost Primarchs? Or something along the lines of some ancient failed experiment that is used as a red herring to get people excited? If you had the chance to become a Shadowkeeper, would you take it? Would you become one of the couple of hundred that defend the Dark Cells? Or would you rather live in bliss and not worry about the horrors beyond comprehension right below the Imperial Palace? Let me know your comments, concerns, suggestions, theories and ideas down in the comment section below. If you think I deserved it with this video, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button. It helps push this video into the algorithm and it would make me very happy. Thank you for watching and I will be seeing you guys in the next one. Bye bye.